half hour, we covered a lot of ground on how the law that the Massachusetts passed enabling gay marriage in Massachusetts is really a wonderful, thoughtful law, and everybody should read the whole thing, I think. That's what you said.
That's the bottom line, right?
Anyway, you guys go from there. Where are we going to go in Rhode Island? We're going to try to have justice here.
We're working on it. Working hard. But you go ahead and recap
Well,
where you've been.
just I think the recap that people that just are tuning in now, within the first half hour, we talked about the gay marriage decision by the Supreme Judicial Court, because when you actually read it, you come away with the feeling it's not activist judges at all. It's instead very thoughtful, caring judges who took a look at what marriage actually does in society, particularly for families and children, and on that basis said it is not rational for us to exclude same-sex couples from the benefits of marriage and to disadvantage their children. So if that idea that children should all have a fair start in life is certainly expressed over and over in Rhode Island law, maybe even to the credit of all Rhode Islanders, maybe even to a greater extent than in Massachusetts.
Good for us.
Yes, so that suggests that the logic that underlies the Massachusetts opinion is here, whether it will be used that way or not. So,
Yeah, and I think, Judy, you've been trying to get us to where are we here in Rhode Island. Well, we're in a couple of different areas. We're in real flux here in Rhode Island. We've been introducing legislation to encourage same-sex couples to marry, to allow same-sex couples to marry under Rhode Island law. This is the 11th year that legislation has been introduced. It's never been voted on. It's never even been voted down. It's never been voted on at all.
Get out of committee.
It doesn't get out of committee.
Yeah, no.
It doesn't even get voted down in committee. It just doesn't, it gets a hearing and then it doesn't get voted on. At the same time, Rhode Island legislators have really recognized the value of same-sex couples and have passed a number of pieces of legislation, including domestic partner health benefits for state employees, encouraging state employees to take family medical leave to care for an ill partner or partner's children.
But only state employees, not
Well, they
Joe
can't.
Blow on the
Yeah,
street?
because of federal law, they can't mandate that any private employers
okay.
allow those same things. But the majority of private employers in Rhode Island now do offer domestic partner health benefits. So there's been a real progressive understanding that same-sex couples are here and their families deserve the same legal protections as other families. And as Kate alluded to earlier, there's been a real encouragement to have same-sex couples parent. A lot of the foster care agencies and adoptive agencies work very hard to recruit same-sex couples to parent. And many same-sex couples are taking children with serious special needs, kids that are hard to place in other homes that have other ways of procuring children, I suppose, would be the most delicate way to say that, right?
Well, I think if the same-sex couples have to fight so hard
Yeah.
to be able to adopt a child or to go through artificial insemination or whatever else to have a child. And a lot of heterosexual parents have a lot more children than they ever intended by accident or default or whatever else. So,
Sure.
So it goes without saying that you care that much and you want it that much, your chances of being as good or better parents is pretty strong.
Yeah, and I think that the bottom line, though, is that it's not your sexual orientation that makes you a good or a bad parent. I'm sure that there are some really fantastic and really terrible same-sex couples that parent, and just like there are really fantastic and really terrible different-sex parents that parent, It doesn't make you better or worse at child rearing. I think one of the things that's important for us to consider now, though, as far as where we are in Rhode Island, is that Rhode Island is one of only 5 states in the nation that has not proactively enacted a ban on same-sex couples marrying. So there's only 5 states out of 50 that have not done that. That's a huge testament to our community and to our principles of fairness, to our understanding that all families deserve equal protection. And at the very least, that we don't need to...
Does that ever come up in the legislature? Are the people trying to...
It has come up a number of times. It has been introduced every year. Basically, marriage and the ban on marriage get introduced together, and they sort of cancel each other out, and neither of them gets a vote. And we expect to see that continue, but the public opinion in support of marriage rights, in support of equal marriage, has continued to increase over time. The public opinion opposition to ban on marriage has also continued to increase over time. So it's now the safest political position is to do nothing. So that's what our legislature has been doing for the last few years. Well, this year we have two things that are changing that a little bit. It's changing the calculus on the Hill just a little bit. The first is that we have a decision from the Massachusetts court that Rhode Island couples can go to Massachusetts and legally marry. And that's just a decision that was made in September. So of all the people in every state in the union, only Rhode Island same-sex couples can go to Massachusetts and get married because we don't have that explicit ban in our laws or from our courts. The second piece of that is that just in February, our Attorney General issued an opinion that those marriages should be recognized because they're legally valid marriages. And so he gave guidance to state agencies, which can be used by other employers, that if you got somebody who works for you and they have a legally valid marriage license from Massachusetts, from Canada, from Spain, from anywhere else, they should be treated as married because they are. So those are two really big things that are different. We estimate that there are a couple hundred Rhode Island couples who have already gone to Massachusetts and married. I know of about 100 more who are planning to over the next year or so. So it's certainly something that people are taking advantage of. And I think we'll be seeing more and more pressure on our legislators because we have some same-sex couples who are married out of state. We have some folks who are getting domestic partner benefits here. And how are they going to rationalize all that? How are they going to pull together all these different statuses that we have and equitably treat everybody the same under the law?
I think one key thing to mention, though, is that's where same-sex couples are going to get the protection, though. They're going to get it from the legislature. They're not probably going to get it from the Supreme Court, though, in Rhode Island. And which the research that I've done, if you look at it, is a thing called dual federalism. You know, you look to the Supreme Court, the United States Supreme Court, as being the floor of the rights that you should be granted, and then you look to your state Supreme Court as being granting you other affirmative rights. And in Rhode Island, they have this thing called presumptive federalism, which means that they won't depart from a Supreme Court or United States Supreme Court case unless there's a so-called principled rationale. Now, who can tell you what a principled rationale is, but it seems like it's not going to be likely that they would depart from what the Supreme Court has said in Lawrence. And I know that you mentioned in Lawrence earlier, but particularly in Lawrence, they said that...
Wait, let's pause and say what Lawrence is.
Yeah, Lawrence.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Lawrence was a United States Supreme Court opinion that basically struck down the sodomy ban, and it was specifically for homosexuals. And that's when they mentioned the due process angles of, you know, the fundamental right to privacy in your own home and to engage in, you know, associational contacts and whatnot. But you look at Lawrence. Lawrence was a criminal ban. It was against the sodomy. It specifically stated that it wasn't going to grant affirmative rights such as marriage and other protections like that. So you have that type of language from the United States Supreme Court, and you wonder, is there a principal rationale for Rhode Island Supreme Court to sidestep that and say there is a fundamental right to marriage?
And one would hope that Rhode Island would find.
One would hope that, but...
Is that system different than in Massachusetts? Do they have a different...
I think Massachusetts is more of a primary approach to look to their Constitution first. If not that, there's another aspect of constitutional analysis, which is dual constitutionalism, which they'll look to their own first and then look to the federal government to, and their reasoning in their cases, to almost like supplement and look at them both at the same time. But reading the Goodrich opinion, it seemed like it was a very independent analysis. It focused, like you said, on the parties and whatnot. And I think Rhode Island is pretty much stuck with that presumptive federalism approach. And it's sad, though, because if you think about like history and constitutional aspects of things, they should be two separate. But a lot of the courts now, they don't. They equate what federal law has said, and that's the position that they take. So that's one of the problems with courts now, and I think if you look at Rhode Island, it's going to come down to the legislature and what they choose, and that's probably why you've seen it